The medical bay beneath the Grand Coliseum had never been this crowded. Dr. Zilpak, the facility's chief physician, scuttled between monitoring stations on her 6 legs, her compound eyes taking in readings that made no sense. In all her years treating gladiator injuries, she had never seen anything like this. The Drokmarian's exoskeleton is cracked in 17 places, she muttered to her assistant. A young centaurian whose crystal body flickered with nervous energy. 3 of his combat spines are completely shattered. His primary mandible is dislocated, and there's significant damage to his central nervous cluster. How is that possible? The assistant asked, his harmonic voice wavering with confusion. The human child barely touched him. Dr. Zilpak's antennae twitched. That's what's impossible about this. According to the arena sensors, the point of impact delivered approximately 47,000 pounds of force per square inch. That's enough to crack a starship hull. Above them, the arena was in chaos. Security teams had cordoned off the fighting pit while technicians swarmed over the recording equipment, desperate to understand what they had witnessed. In the stands, thousands of beings argued loudly in dozens of languages, their voices creating a cacophony that could be heard for miles. Marcus Chun sat alone in a small waiting area adjacent to the medical bay, sipping from a container of Earth-standard water. He looked exactly like what he was, a small human child who had just finished a minor task. No sweat, no heavy breathing, no signs of exertion whatsoever. If anything, he looked slightly bored. Mr. Chun? A tall, elegant figure approached, moving with the fluid grace that marked him as Altarian nobility. I am Lord Vashen, chairman of the Galactic Combat League's Executive Committee. Might I have a word? Marcus looked up, his dark eyes meeting the alien's silver gaze. Sure, what can I help you with? The casual tone made Lord Vashen's head crest flutter with surprise. Most beings approached him with deference, if not outright fear. This human child spoke like they were equals discussing the weather? Perhaps you could help us understand what just occurred in the arena, Lord Vashen said carefully, settling his 7-foot frame onto a bench designed for much smaller beings. Our sensors recorded some unusual readings during your match. I won, Marcus said simply. That's what happened. Yes, but how? Kethvar is one of the most formidable warriors in the galaxy. His species has dominated combat sports for over 2 centuries. Their exoskeletons are nearly impenetrable, their strength is legendary, and their fighting instincts are hardwired from birth. Marcus took another sip of water. He was definitely strong. And fast. Faster than I expected, actually. Yet you defeated him in 10 seconds. 10 seconds? Marcus looked genuinely surprised. Really? It felt longer. Lord Vashen's crest fluttered again. Either this human child was the most accomplished liar in galactic history, or he truly didn't understand the magnitude of what he had done. Mr. Chun, may I ask about your training? Your background in combat? I don't have any formal training, Marcus replied. I mean, I've taken some martial arts classes back home, but nothing serious. Just basic stuff my parents made me do for exercise and discipline. The Altarian Lord felt a chill run down his spine. Basic training. Exercise and discipline. This creature had just destroyed the galaxy's premier gladiator as a form of exercise. And your physical capabilities? He asked delicately. Are they typical for your species? Marcus shrugged. I guess. I mean, I'm pretty average for a human my age. Maybe a little strong because I play sports, but nothing special. Nothing special. Lord Vashen made a mental note to immediately contact the Galactic Senate's Xenobiology Committee. If this was an average human child, what were their adults capable of? Mr. Chun, would you mind if we ran some basic physical tests? Just to help us understand your species better? I guess that's okay. Will it take long? I'm supposed to meet my parents for dinner, and they get worried if I'm late. 20 minutes later, Dr. Zilpak was studying her instruments with growing alarm. She had run every test in her considerable arsenal, checked and rechecked the calibrations, and even brought in backup equipment from the arena's engineering department. The results were consistent, impossible, and terrifying. Lord Vashan, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, I need to speak with you privately. They stepped into a soundproofed consultation room while Marcus waited outside, now reading something on a small electronic device he had pulled from his pocket. The test results, Dr. Zilpak began, then stopped, unsure how to continue. Just tell me, Doctor. The human child's bone density is approximately 12 times greater than what our models predicted based on their homeworld's gravity. His muscle fiber composition includes elements we've never seen in any known species. His reflexes test at 7 times faster than the quickest recorded Centaurian warrior. And his cardiovascular system... She paused again. Go on. His heart rate never exceeded 72 beats per minute during the entire examination. Even when we asked him to demonstrate his maximum strength by gripping our testing apparatus. And he crushed it, completely. The device was rated to measure forces up to 50,000 pounds per square inch. He destroyed it without even trying. Lord Vashan sat down heavily. Doctor, in your professional opinion, what are we dealing with? Dr. Zilpak's compound eyes focused on the floor. Either this is an elaborate hoax involving technology beyond our understanding, or we have just encountered a species that makes our most fearsome warriors look like newborns. And if it's the latter, then the galaxy has a serious problem, because according to the diplomatic briefings I've seen, there are approximately 8 billion of these creatures on their homeworld. In the waiting area, Marcus looked up from his device as raised voices echoed from nearby rooms. Through the medical bay's transparent walls, he could see crowds of aliens arguing animatedly, pointing at display screens that showed replays of his match. Some of them looked excited. Others looked terrified. He wondered what all the fuss was about. Sure, Kethvar had been tough, but he had telegraphed his moves so obviously that even his little sister could have dodged them. And his exoskeleton, while impressive-looking, had obvious stress points that any decent engineering student would spot immediately. Marcus checked his chronometer inside. If these people didn't wrap up their tests soon, he really would be late for dinner. His parents had been very clear about punctuality, and the restaurant they had chosen was supposed to have excellent pasta. He was actually looking forward to trying alien food for the first time. He hoped they wouldn't make him fight anyone else while he was here. One match had been interesting enough to satisfy his curiosity about galactic combat sports, but he had homework to catch up on. And his physics teacher had promised extra credit for anyone who wrote a report about the artificial gravity systems they had observed during their diplomatic tour behind the consultation room door. Lord Vashan was making an emergency call to the Galactic Senate. For the first time in his long career, he found himself genuinely afraid of what the future might hold. Priority alert, he spoke into his communicator. We need an immediate session on the human situation. And I strongly suggest we reconsider our entire first contact protocol. The roar of 40,000 alien voices shook the crystalline dome of the Grand Colosseum on Zarian Prime, in the center of the massive arena. Sand stained purple with the blood of countless warriors stretched beneath the artificial suns. This was where the galaxy's greatest fighters came to prove their worth, where legends were born and the weak were forgotten. Kethvar stood at the edge of the fighting pit, his 4 muscular arms flexing as he watched the crowds above. The Drokmarian warrior was 8 feet of pure killing machine, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the arena lights. Razor-sharp spines jutted from his shoulders and forearms, and his mandibles clicked with anticipation. For 15 years he had been undefeated in these sands. 347 kills. 347 victories that had made him the most feared gladiator in the Galactic Combat League. Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all species, the announcer's voice boomed across the arena in perfect galactic standard. Today we witness something unprecedented in the history of the Grand Colosseum. Kethvar's 4 black eyes focused on the opposite gate. Behind that barrier waited his next opponent, and according to the betting boards flashing around the arena's upper tiers, it would be his easiest victory yet. The odds were 10,000 to 1 in his favor. The entire galaxy had placed their bets accordingly. In the red corner, the announcer continued, Weighing in at 430 pounds of pure Drokmarian muscle, standing 8 feet and 2 inches tall, with a perfect record of 347 victories and 0 defeats, the Nightmare of Zarian, the Blade of the Outer Rim, Kethvar the Destroyer. The crowd erupted. Kethvar raised his forearms high, basking in the adulation. His mandibles spread wide in what his species considered a smile, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth. Today would add another easy victory to his record. Today would prove once again that no species in the galaxy could match Drokmarian might. And in the blue corner, the announcer's voice took on an uncertain tone, representing the newly discovered world of Earth, weighing in at 93 pounds, standing 4 feet and 8 inches tall with 0 professional combat experience. The human child known as Marcus Chun. The arena fell silent. For a moment, the only sound was the hum of the force field generators and the distant rumble of atmospheric processors. Then slowly, a murmur began to ripple through the crowd. Confusion, disbelief, anger, Kethvar's mandibles snapped shut. A child? They were making him fight a child? His reputation was built on facing the galaxy's deadliest warriors, not crushing helpless younglings. But the contracts were signed, the bets were placed, and the Galactic Combat League never canceled a match once the combatants were announced. The blue gate began to rise with a mechanical whir. From the shadows stepped a figure so small that many in the upper sections had to lean forward to see clearly. Marcus Chen looked exactly like what the galaxy expected from the descriptions of humanity they had received: bipedal, soft-skinned, fragile. His black hair was cut short, and his brown eyes seemed too large for his young face. He wore simple combat gear that looked 3 sizes, too big for his slight frame, but there was something in those eyes that made Kethvar pause. The child showed no fear, no trembling, no tears. He walked into the arena like he belonged there, like he had done this 1,000 times before. His small hands hung loose at his sides, and his breathing was steady and controlled. "This is madness," growled Senator Vextool from the VIP section, his tentacles writhing with agitation. "Who authorized this match? The humans are barely spacefaring. This is their first representative in the League." Ambassador Quindar of the Centauran Republic shook his crystalline head. The paperwork was filed correctly. The human delegation requested the match specifically. They claim their species deserves a chance to prove themselves in galactic society. By feeding a child to Kethvar? Senator Vextool's voice rose an octave. "This isn't combat, it's execution." Down in the arena, Marcus Chun had stopped at the center of the fighting pit. He looked up at the crowd, then across at Kethvar. The Drokmarian warrior found himself studying the child more carefully. There was definitely something wrong with this picture. No rational species would send a youngling to certain death without reason. Either the humans were completely insane, or there was something he didn't understand. "Combatants," the referee's mechanical voice echoed across the sand. "You will fight until one surrenders, is incapacitated, or is dead. The use of external weapons is forbidden. Natural weapons and abilities are permitted. Do you understand the terms of combat?" Kethvar nodded, his spines extending slightly. Marcus Chun simply said yes. His voice carried clearly across the arena despite his size. There was no fear in it. If anything, there was a note of something that sounded almost like boredom. The crowd began to get restless. Angry shouts echoed from various sections. Several alien dignitaries were demanding the match be stopped. The betting pools were in chaos as thousands of spectators demanded their money back. This wasn't what they had paid to see, but the Galactic Combat League had rules, and those rules were absolute. Once announced, a match proceeded to its conclusion. "Combatants ready?" The referee called. Kethvar dropped into his combat stance, all 4 arms spread wide, spines fully extended. His mandibles clicked rapidly in the Drokmarian battle song, a sound that had been the last thing hundreds of opponents had heard. Marcus Chun ... didn't move. He stood casually, hands still at his sides, weight evenly distributed on both feet. To most observers, he looked like he was waiting for a bus, not preparing to fight for his life. "Begin combat." The energy barrier between them flickered and died. Kethvar charged immediately. His species was built for explosive speed and devastating close combat. 8 feet of armored killing machine thundered across the sand, all forearms extended, razor spines glittering in the arena lights. The crowd gasped at the sheer ferocity of his assault. Many beings covered their optical organs, unable to watch the inevitable slaughter. Marcus Chun waited. He waited until Kethvar was less than 3 feet away, committed to his charge, all 4 arms reaching out to grab and rend. Then the human child moved. What happened next would be debated by combat analysts for decades. Some claimed they saw it clearly. Others insisted it was impossible to follow with the naked eye. The arena's recording systems, designed to capture even the fastest alien reflexes, would require frame-by-frame analysis to piece together the sequence of events. Marcus Chun shifted his weight slightly to the right. His left hand came up in a movement so quick it seemed to blur. There was a sound like a wet branch snapping. Kethvar's charge suddenly became a tumble as his massive body flew sideways through the air. The Drokmarian warrior hit the arena wall with a crash that sent cracked spider webbing through the reinforced barrier. He slid down to the sand and lay still. The arena was silent. Marcus Chun stood where he had been, looking down at his left hand with mild interest. He flexed his fingers once, then let his arm drop back to his side. Combat concluded, the referee announced after a long pause. Victory to Marcus Chun of Earth by knockout. Time elapsed, 10 seconds. The silence stretched for another heartbeat. Then pandemonium erupted. 40,000 beings began shouting at once. The betting systems crashed as impossible odds tried to recalculate. Security forces rushed toward the arena floor, unsure whether they were responding to a riot or a revolution. In the VIP section, Ambassador Quindar leaned forward, his crystalline features reflecting the arena lights like a prism. "What?" he whispered. "Are these humans?" The emergency session of the Galactic Senate convened 8 hours after the match ended. Representatives from 47 different species filled the massive chamber on Nexus Station, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, harmonic tones, and electromagnetic pulses. At the center of the circular room, a holographic display showed the arena footage on continuous loop. Senator Vextool of the Mordanian Consortium rose to address the assembly, his tentacles weaving complex patterns that conveyed his emotional state to any species, capable of reading bioluminescent signals. "Fellow sentients," he began, "we face an unprecedented situation. What we witnessed today challenges everything we thought we knew about biological limitations and the natural order of the galaxy." The footage played again. 10 seconds of impossible violence that had already been viewed over 3 billion times across the galactic network. Frame-by-frame analysis had revealed details that made the reality even more disturbing. The human child had moved with precision that bordered on prescience, striking at exactly the right angle with exactly the right amount of force to incapacitate without killing. The human delegation claims this individual represents an average member of their species, continued Senator Vextool. If this is true, we must reconsider every assumption about the balance of power in this galaxy. Ambassador Quindar activated his translation matrix and spoke in crystalline harmonics that resonated through the chamber. The Centauran Republic has completed a preliminary analysis of Earth's population and industrial capacity. The numbers are ... concerning. A new holographic display materialized above the assembly, showing Earth's blue-green surface and scrolling columns of data. 8.2 billion individuals. Industrial output that rivals some of our mid-tier worlds, despite their recent achievement of interstellar travel. Most troubling. Preliminary scans suggest their entire population shows similar physiological markers to the individual we observe today. Murmurs rippled through the chamber in a dozen different languages. Several representatives from warrior cultures shifted uncomfortably in their specialized seating. "Are we suggesting," asked General HFY of the Regelian Military Alliance, "that we have encountered a species where children possess combat capabilities that exceed our finest soldiers?" That appears to be exactly what we're suggesting. Senator Vextool replied grimly. Deep in the station's diplomatic quarters, Marcus Chun was having dinner with his parents, blissfully unaware that his 10-second match had triggered the largest emergency session in galactic history. The restaurant they had chosen specialized in fusion cuisine, attempting to blend flavors from dozens of different worlds. "How was your day, honey?" his mother asked, cutting into something that resembled chicken but was actually a protein-rich fungus from Altair 4. "Pretty good," Marcus replied, poking at a dish that looked like pasta but was made from processed algae that grew in the zero-gravity farms of Europa. "I got to see some of the city, met some interesting people. Oh, and I had to do this weird fighting thing for some kind of sporting event." His father looked up from his meal. "Fighting thing? Marcus, we've talked about getting into trouble in new places." "I wasn't in trouble, Dad. These alien people asked if I wanted to try their combat sport, so I said sure. It was actually kind of fun, but the other guy wasn't very good." The whole thing was over really quickly. Dr. Sarah Chun exchanged a glance with her husband. As xenobiologists, they had been part of Earth's first diplomatic mission to establish relations with the galactic community. They were well aware that many alien species settled disputes through ritualized combat, but they had assumed such events would be properly supervised. "Was this supervised?" she asked. "Did they explain the rules clearly?" "Oh yeah, it was very official. Huge arena, thousands of spectators, referees, the whole thing. They seemed pretty excited about it afterward, but I think maybe their entertainment standards are different from ours." The fight was really one-sided. Professor James Chun set down his fork. "One-sided how?" "Well, the other guy was really big and looked pretty scary, but he fought like someone who had never actually been in a real fight before. All flash, no substance. He charged straight at me like some kind of movie monster. I just waited for him to get close enough, then tapped him in the right spot to short out his nervous system." "Basic anatomy, really?" Both parents stared at their 14-year-old son. "Marcus," his mother said slowly, "what exactly did this other fighter look like?" Kind of like a giant insect. 8 feet tall, 4 arms, natural armor plating. The people here called him something like Kethvar the Destroyer. Seemed like a big deal to them." Dr. Chun felt the blood drain from her face. During their diplomatic briefings, they had been shown recordings of various galactic combat sports. Kethvar was legendary and undefeated champion, whose species was considered one of the most formidable warrior races in known space. "Marcus," his father said carefully, "you defeated Kethvar the Destroyer?" "I guess." "Is that bad?" They seemed happy about it afterward. Well, most of them did. Some of the people looked kind of upset, but I figured they had probably bet on the other guy. Back in the Senate chamber, the debate was becoming heated. Representatives from several military powers were demanding immediate action, though they couldn't agree on what form that action should take. "We must establish formal military alliances with Earth immediately," insisted General Thakvor. "If their children can defeat our champions, their adults could end any war before it begins." "Absolutely not," countered Senator Zix of the Pacifist Coalition, her ethereal form flickering with agitation. "We should be working to contain this threat before it spreads. These humans are clearly a dangerous species that could destabilize the entire galactic order." Lord Vashhan stood and activated the central podium's amplification system. "With respect to all present, I believe we are approaching this situation with the wrong assumptions." The chamber fell quiet as the influential Altarian lord continued. "I spent considerable time with the human child after his victory. He showed no signs of aggression, no interest in conquest or dominance. When asked about his capabilities, he seemed genuinely confused by our amazement. To him, what we witnessed was routine, ordinary, mundane. Which makes it even more terrifying," Senator Vextool observed. "Or," Lord Vashhan said quietly, "it makes it an opportunity. Consider, here is a species that possesses incredible physical capabilities, but appears to lack the aggressive instincts that typically accompany such power. They seek knowledge, exploration, cooperation. Perhaps what we have discovered is not a threat, but a potential guardian. The suggestion rippled through the assembly like a shockwave. Several species had legends about protector races' mythical beings, who would arise in times of great need to defend the innocent and maintain cosmic balance. Most had dismissed such stories as primitive superstition. "You're suggesting," said Ambassador Quindar slowly, "that humanity might serve as some kind of galactic peacekeeping force?" "I'm suggesting that we should learn more about them before we make any decisions based on fear," Lord Vashon replied. "The child I met was polite, curious, and genuinely concerned about being late for dinner with his parents. These are not the characteristics of a species we should fear." The debate continued for hours, but gradually a consensus began to emerge. Earth would be formally welcomed into the galactic community with full diplomatic status. More importantly, humanity would be invited to join the Galactic Defense Force not as conquerors or enforcers, but as protectors. The next morning, Marcus woke up in his family's temporary quarters aboard the diplomatic vessel to find his parents reading something on their data tablets with expressions of bewilderment. "What's up?" he asked, shuffling toward the food dispenser in his pajamas. "The Galactic Senate has offered Earth full membership in their alliance," his mother said. "They're also asking if we'd be interested in helping them with something called galactic security." Marcus poured himself a glass of orange juice and considered this. "That sounds cool. What would that involve?" "Apparently," his father said, still reading, "they want humans to serve as peacekeepers. They seem to think we'd be good at preventing conflicts and protecting smaller species from aggressive neighbors." "Makes sense," Marcus said, taking a bite of toast. "I mean, most of the alien people I've met seem pretty nice, but some of them are probably bullies. And bullies only understand one language." His parents looked at each other over their tablets. Their son spoke about galactic peacekeeping the same way. He might discuss helping younger kids at school avoid playground fights. To him, it was just the right thing to do. Maybe, Dr. Chun thought, the galaxy had found exactly what it needed. Not conquerors or warriors, but a species that was strong enough to protect others and wise enough to know when to stop. Outside their ship's viewport, the stars of the galactic core sparkled like diamonds against the cosmic dark. Somewhere among those lights, 47 different species were learning to sleep a little easier, knowing that if trouble arose, there were humans willing to help, and in a medical bay on Zarian Prime, Kethvar was slowly recovering from his injuries, already planning his request for a rematch. He had, after all, learned something important about